years have passed since 14-year-old Treysuhr Carter was found lying unconscious on a residential street just blocks from her Northeast Austin home. After police determined Carter's death was an accident, KXAN revealed missteps in the investigation, including failing to gather key evidence at the scene, prompting police to reopen the case. This week on Inside the Investigation, senior investigative producer David Barrere explains why, even after a second review, the case is closed and cleared with no charge. Welcome to Inside the Investigation. I'm Kelly Wiley, and I'm here with senior investigative producer David Barrere. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
David, we're here to talk about a case that you've been on for over a year, talking about the tragic death of Treysuhr Carter. I want to ask you, because you've remained connected to the family as you've been doing this reporting, how are they doing?
Maybe they're doing as well as can be expected. They lost, I keep in touch with Treysuhr Carter's mom, and she lost her youngest daughter and under tragic circumstances. So it's an extremely difficult situation for them, and they continue to grieve.
It's so interesting, I think, in particular about investigative reporting and reporters who are kind of following up on a story for a long period of time. It requires so much trust from the people that you're profiling. And I mean, you've developed, I feel, it seems like an incredible amount of trust between you and their family, because they really do turn to you often to give you information, and they seem to believe that you're going to do right by them and be truthful in your reporting.
Yeah, if you see the reporting, excuse me, you know that Monica and her other daughters have been frustrated with the Austin Police Department for a while. And so when we came and did our investigation and coverage of it, they really appreciated that. And so we've been to their apartment, we've been to the memorial site with them, we've done multiple interviews with people in their family. And so we have developed a level of trust and communication that's ongoing. So I think they appreciate that, and that's not the case for all the investigations we do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do an investigation and it sort of ends there, and then we don't really communicate with them anymore. Maybe something will come up years later, and then we'll get back in touch. But in this case, we've continued to do follow-up stories. So we have sort of kept an open line of communication with the family.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this newest update. There's a new police report on this case. Walk us through the newest information.
Yes, so a new police report was finished last year, and it is substantial. After we began investigating this in 2014, APD assigned a new detective. I call him, I'll just refer to him as the new detective. He's been working on this for a long time, so he's not literally new to it. But the new detective got to work on it, and he was assigned and began essentially investigating everything possible in the case that was written in the report that he could. And so he went over the original leads, he looked into new ones. He did crash reconstruction work, and he said in the report that his main focus was sort of to break his investigation into like two forks, I guess you could say. Was Treysuhr hit by a vehicle, or was the cause of this tragedy something other than being hit by a vehicle, which could be a fall, which could be her being placed there. All these other possibilities. So using that as sort of like his guiding North Star, he set out to look into all these different possibilities and doing his reconstruction, doing trajectories of how, if she had fallen, what would her speed need to be, how could that have physically happened, and he lays all that out in the new in the new police report.
Okay, so did anything jump out to you when you're reading that report? Because for those of you who've not watched the original investigation, what you guys found is that there were a lot of missteps, a lot of things that they didn't do right in the first investigation. So what jumped out to you from that point?
Right, so in the original investigation, in the police, in one interview that we did with a lieutenant in the vehicular section of the police department, he did acknowledge, and the police have acknowledged, that they did not pick up the scooter that Treysuhr was apparently riding at the time, and that was a key piece of evidence. They also didn't pick up her do-rag, which she was wearing at that time, and that came off and was in the road and was seen and is shown in some body-worn camera footage from that night. And they also didn't get her Croc sandals or slip-on shoes. So there were things that were left at the scene that, in the scooter in particular, vanished. The scooter vanished the next day. So that can never be recovered. And it really can't help. There's basically no chance that it can ever help the investigation at this point. And that's a critical piece of evidence, because if she was riding it, if you could take a look at that, you would know, does it have damage? What kind of damage does it have? If there was a piece of, if she was hit by a car, maybe it would have some paint on it or something, some clues that could point them in the right direction, but that's gone. So to overcome that, the new report, they did a lot of like a look at it forensically. And so to answer your question, a couple things did jump out. One was a second-by-second analysis that the detective did of surveillance camera footage from 2 homes that were near the spot where she was found. And so there are 2 houses there that have backyard cameras that sort of face toward the street, but it's sort of hard to explain. But the backyards have wooden fences that you can't see through. And this all happened at nighttime. So there's a little bit of area where you could see cars going by just by the headlights. You can't make out what kind of cars or the detective couldn't make out what kind of cars they are, but he could see by timing on the cameras and sort of coordinating that. There was also a camera in the front yard of one of the houses that got audio. So he was able to go second by second and narrow down 5 cars that were going across northbound on this road, Farm Haven Road, just before the 911 call came in for Treysuhr. So the second car, and this is one of the more interesting things, the second car that goes by, he said it was going by a little bit faster than probably the speed limit was. And there's a bang heard about a second or 2 after it goes past the camera. That is followed by a skidding noise, and then a pause of about 30 seconds. Then there's a revving engine noise and a car honk. And so one theory that the detective thought, if this were the car that hit Treysuhr, it could have gone by. The bang could have been that car hitting Treysuhr. Skidding noise could have been her scooter. That 30 seconds, the car could have slowed down, stopped. Don't know what's going on in that time period, but then there's a revving noise, so maybe it's sped up to go away, and there's a honk, possibly a car coming in the other direction, seeing maybe a car stopped there, something in the road, we don't know. And so that's one theory. The detective noted it's all just a theory, and it's a lot of speculation. He's piecing together things there and making a scenario that's possible, but there's nothing definitive he could determine from the surveillance footage. So that's one thing that jumped out. The other thing I think that was interesting was he sought to prove or to show if it would be possible for her to fall off of her scooter. And to do that, he had to use some mathematical calculations, taking into account the slope of the road, and using a formula to with her height, her weight, and the speed of a scooter. And he determined, I don't remember all of the speeds off the top of my head, but that she would be going maybe in the 20 mile per hour range potentially, which he thought was theoretically possible. So he couldn't rule out that she had been riding a scooter and fell, and that could be what caused her an injury. So, but again, nothing definitive.
Just a theory.
Theories.
Yeah.
So sort of, he went through all these different theories, and at the end of it, he acknowledges, there's no way that he could make a definitive determination that one thing or the other happened with the evidence that they have now. And with that, he administratively cleared the case, leaving it the same as it was as an accident, because he didn't have enough to change it one way or the other. With that, he also noted the charge of collision involving death, which is what I guess someone, if she was hit by a car,
right.
That has no statute of limitations. So there is the possibility in the future, if more evidence comes out or if someone comes forward with more information, that could lead to a charge that someone could be held responsible.
So interesting, because so often we hear about rates and clearance rates for these sorts of cases, and you really don't know a lot of time the details within just one case and why it can't be solved. How does the family feel about this? Because I mean,
they haven't felt good about it since the beginning, and they've said that in the latest interview that we did. Our supervisor Josh did the interview, and discussed that there's now 200 pages in the police report with all of this supplemental information and additional work that the new detective did. And it really, what it hitches on with them is that at the very beginning of the case, that one main thing for them is that scooter wasn't picked up, that steps weren't taken, that police have acknowledged at the very beginning, and that they feel has permanently affected what could possibly be found now.
Wow. So it all comes back to still that first night, and the missteps that you guys have pointed out through your investigation is still impacting even a recharged effort to figure out what's going on.
For the family, definitely it does come back to that. And for police, they also acknowledge in this report that it was very unfortunate that scooter wasn't picked up, and that there's information that they could have gotten from that they can never get now. And so it's, obviously the case remains unsolved. The police officer acknowledges he can't make a determination what happened one way or the other, and you can't help but think what would it all look like if they had done it differently that first night and first few days. I will say another thing that stuck out in the report, it's not necessarily new, but the new detective did reiterate it, is that he's said he's done crash reconstruction, he's done vehicular crash and investigations many times before, and he has never, I believe he said he had never seen a crash where a car hit a person at enough speed like this, that there wasn't some piece of it or some evidence left at the scene. A side view mirror, a piece of a bumper, a grill piece that cracked off, a headlight shard, some glass, some blood, or skid marks on the ground. And he said, the original investigator and the police at the scene didn't find any of that. Oh. And that was a big thing that led them initially to think this was a scooter fall accident, a push scooter. I don't know if we ever defined that, but we're not talking about a motorized scooter. We're talking about a scooter that you...
The traditional kick your leg.
Yes, you use your foot power to get it going. And so that was a big reason why that lack of any sort of evidence at the scene was a big reason why they thought this couldn't have been a car hitting her, because there was nothing there at the scene to see.
Yeah. This isn't one of the questions that I planned to ask you, so don't freak out.
Okay.
But
I'm freaking out.
don't freak out. I just remember when you first started looking at this case and how little we knew, and that it was just a hunch from you reading the report and saying, this doesn't seem right. And that it was just you starting to ask questions. And sometimes we start where somebody gives us a lot of stuff, but that this really was not the case. And what was it about the original information that you received that made you want to keep pursuing this?
I think just from my own experience, and I talked with other people, I think we've all fallen off of a bicycle or a scooter or some sort of, roller skates, whatever you want to say. And the injury, it was the concept that it was a fall like that with her injuries, which she broke her neck, she had a traumatic brain injury, she had lacerations to internal organs, and one of her shin bones was shattered. And so that was just such a catastrophic amount of injuries that really made it seem not impossible, but improbable maybe that she had just fallen off a scooter. And that's how her family has felt. And I think the medical examiner, after we started our initial investigation, they did amend their report to reflect that they thought it was most likely caused by a motor vehicle. And I think a big part of that was the amount of injuries that she had, and then more evidence that we sent over to them, the full police report and her hospital records. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think it was just the amount of injuries, and then the concept that she could have fallen off a kick scooter and done that. All that said, and this is something that the police officer, the new detective, says in his report, is that in his experience, there are things that can happen in a vehicular crash that defy imagination.
Right.
That you can never think would possibly happen. He used an example of a crash happening and a car ended up in a tree. And so you would look at that and say, like, there's no possible way this could have, happened. I don't understand it. But things happen that we can't really wrap our head around, and especially if we don't have enough evidence to sort of figure it out. There's no video of it. There's no eyewitnesses that have come forward, obviously. So we're left with a lot of questions.
So what happens now?
That's a good question. Like I said, the new detective, they've cleared the case administratively with the caveat that it can be reopened at some point if new evidence comes to light, if someone comes forward with information, that could happen. So for the time being, unless something like that happens, I don't know that the police will be doing a whole lot with it. The reinvestigation was substantial from what I saw. So I think that we will continue to look into some leads we've discussed, but beyond that, it seems like it's come to a standstill.
Yeah. One more final question that I don't have on the sheet, but Treysuhr's face is in the story, and her family, she meant so much to her family, and it comes through in your reporting. What do you think Treysuhr's family, or what has Treysuhr's family told you they want people to remember about her?
The first interview we ever did with her, with the family, her coach came and they talked a lot about her love of basketball, and she was the first girl in her middle school that ever played on the guys' football team.
Oh, wow.
She loved to dance, and her mom always says that she really liked to, make people laugh and stuff. So, just the things she enjoyed doing. I think that they talk about that a lot, and her love of life and things like that. The possibilities she had in her life. She was young, you know.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for your incredible reporting. I hope you all will check it out. You can find it on KXAN.com under the Investigates tab. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. You can watch all new episodes of Inside the Investigation on the KXAN Plus app every Friday starting at 1 p.m. Just search for KXAN on your preferred streaming devices such as Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can also listen to KXAN's Investigative podcast, where we feature audio versions of our weekly Inside the Investigation episodes. You can find new episodes every Saturday morning wherever you get podcasts. Just search for KXAN Investigates.